Okay, Jake, this week you met with Daina, and she is an agent in both the Nashville market and Atlanta, Georgia market. So I'm curious to hear how that went, what you found out, and tell me about the two different markets.
It was cool. It was a cool conversation. I love talking to Daina. She's an agent here in Nashville and in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And we just talked about what it's like to kind of navigate the waters of working in two different brokerages in two different cities. And then also we got into, at first it was a conversation about, my questions were about, what are the two markets like? And we kind of realized that it's not really two markets. You're dealing with like multiple sub-markets even within the markets. Because for instance, in Nashville, like the Bellevue market is not the same as East Nashville. The North Nashville market is not the same as Antioch. These are all different sub-markets within Nashville. And then she has sub-markets within Atlanta too. So she's really managing like 15, 20 markets at once in her head, talking to clients from all of them. So it was a really cool conversation, and I thought it was super interesting to learn how she kind of just keeps her head on straight going between two different places.
Okay. Wow. Okay, because we hear that a lot. People saying, hey, how's the market? And that's my thought. It's like, yeah, how is the Nashville market? But you're saying it's not the Nashville market. You have to be more specific. Which market are you talking about?
Totally.
Okay. Cool. Let's check it out.
Real 615, I'm here with Daina Storey. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Excited to talk to you today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Daina is an agent in the Nashville and Atlanta markets, serving both, which is super cool.
Yeah.
So let's chat a little bit.
Awesome.
First of all, what got you into real estate? How did you kind of get your start going?
I originally worked for an agent as a transaction coordinator. So
Okay.
I was on the admin side. I did listings, all the listing management. I also did the new homes, like the new homes coordinator. He was the agent that I was with was the primary agent for a builder. So I handled all of their communications between the builder, the clients, agents, all that stuff. So I got a lot of a full education in a lot of different areas on the admin side. And so it really was actually a very valuable experience as far as getting going in real estate, because I kind of learned so much about the business and how it all works. And then after that, I was like, you know what? I would like to make those commission checks.
Agent myself.
Yeah.
So you did all the work first, and you said, let me actually get that commission check.
Yes.
Nice.
But it was very valuable to have that piece. I did that for about 2 years.
That's awesome.
And then got my license later on.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so you serve the Atlanta market and the Nashville market.
Yes.
I'm super interested to know, like, how do you, say I'm a buyer maybe from Chicago and I'm looking to come to either Nashville or Atlanta. How do you kind of help that navigate that conversation, and what does that look like for you?
It's, typically people already kind of have an idea of whether they want to be Nashville or Atlanta when I am meeting with them. But as far as, comparing and contrasting the two, they are similar in some ways in the fact that, they have experienced very quick growth. Atlanta obviously happened before Nashville, and Nashville is kind of maybe 5-10 years behind the growth of Atlanta, but it's just that very fast boom, and having to kind of develop the outer areas, and they're just very different personalities. Nashville is very entertainment based, really fun. Atlanta has entertainment as well. They've got a great music scene, but Atlanta's a little bit more spread out as far as like the accessibility to some of those things, whereas I feel Nashville has a very concentrated, the downtown core and, Davidson County as a whole. But they're both really fun cities. They have a lot of cool, fun things to do for individuals, young professionals, families, all kinds of stuff. Traffic, I would say, is still a good bit worse in Atlanta, but they at least have a transit system.
Yeah.
Nashville does not have public transit, so
public transit's rough here in Nashville.
It's tough.
I'm from California before this, so
same. Okay, I'm from Southern California.
Oh, cool.
So same thing. You're just driving everywhere. So I don't know. Nashville, I've been here for 20 years and really kind of seen that growth. And Atlanta is awesome, but it's just a little different, and it's a kind of more spread out in certain ways.
Gotcha.
So Nashville seems to be more compact, and
That's awesome.
So do you work primarily with kind of first-time home buyers, or are you working with investors mostly, or do you run the gamut on everybody, or?
Kind of run the gamut. I've had a lot of both, and so really just kind of depends on
Nice.
what people are looking for. And most of my business is referral based, and so I've been very fortunate in that aspect. And so it's kind of, oh, my friend is wanting to find some investment property, or I have a friend who's a first-time home buyer, so have kind of run the gamut.
Nice.
On that.
Awesome. So what made you choose, you've been in Nashville 20 years, what made you choose to kind of start looking at the Atlanta market?
I've been going to Atlanta since I moved here. It was just when Nashville hadn't really been as developed, Atlanta was like the next best place to go for bands and music and things like that. And then I ended up marrying, my husband's from Atlanta.
Nice.
His whole family's from there. They still live there. So we go down all the time, and it was just kind of we have friends. And so it was kind of one of those things where it was like, I'm here enough. I know it well enough. Obviously, maybe not as well as someone who lives there full time, but I feel like I pay close attention and we're there a lot. So kind of just because of the family tie.
Nice.
Is what made me want to do it.
And then as an agent, what was kind of what's your process like when you were kind of looking for brokerages out there? Did you go in through referrals from you already knew, or?
Yeah, I did. A friend of mine, first I think my main motivation was someplace that didn't have a huge cap or a cap at all, and it was more transaction based. Because, if I'm not there full time, it doesn't make sense for me to have to try to meet a cap every time. And I had a friend who he was an agent at a brokerage that was more transaction based, and every time you have a transaction, it's a small fee.
Right.
But they still have a lot of the services that I needed, and they're a lot of ways their culture is very similar to the brokerage I'm with here in Nashville, and so that was also something that was important too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And does Georgia have a reciprocal license, or did you have to take another test out there? Or?
They do. And that was part of the reason why, in addition to my husband's family being there, it was also, do the steps, fill out certain paperwork, but you don't have to take a test.
Nice.
And Florida, you have to.
Okay.
Alabama, I think you have to. South Carolina, you have to. So I just, it was very easy because it was reciprocal.
So the music, the bands, that's what got you there first.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Big into music. And a lot of those bands skip Nashville. Back in the day, they would skip Nashville and just go to Atlanta.
Really?
So I'd have to go
that's
down there.
To hear. Wow.
Yeah. And now, they're here they're both now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
So do you plan on expanding into more markets, or do you see yourself as kind of leading these two spots, or?
I think I'll stay just with these two. I looked into Florida. I think Florida would be awesome just because of the investment property, and so many families from Nashville go down to Florida for their vacations and have a second home there. And I love going down there anyway. Mm-hmm. But as far as just, you have to have certain, like in Tennessee, you have to have your CE credits. You have to fulfill certain obligations, hourly obligations. So compounding that by 3 just wouldn't leave me much time to actually do real estate.
Yeah. You need a second job to pay all those dues.
Exactly. Yeah. The dues, the CE courses, all that stuff. So, I feel like I've gotten into a good groove with Atlanta and Nashville. So maybe someday I would do Florida, but as of right now,
Gotcha.
I'll just stick with the 2.
What's for anybody who's thinking about investing in the Atlanta market, what's like an up and coming maybe neighborhood or something that you're excited about, or anything specific that you can?
So I love kind of Midtown, downtown. Those are pretty well established, but if you go a little bit further out, there's some areas like Decatur, downtown Decatur is awesome, but it's gotten really expensive. So some of the areas outside of that, like literally just outside of Decatur, is great. The southwest side, I just had a friend who bought out there, and it's a little bit more urban, but they're seeing more development. It's more industrial, I should say, versus urban. A lot of industrial plants, things like that, but they're starting to really create some cool communities on the southwest side as well.
Nice.
So.
And then Nashville specific, what are some of the areas that you focus on out here? Are you kind of all over the place, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of. I've been Hendersonville, downtown. I love North Nashville.
Okay.
I think it's such a great community. I'm working with someone down in Shelbyville right now,
Nice.
So it just kind of...
I love Hendersonville. It's so pretty up there.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And I think the diversity of like just the different areas of Nashville are really cool. And Atlanta's kind of a similar thing too. It's got just different areas depending on what you like to do and you know things like that.
And the aquarium there is like one of the biggest.
Yes,
that's like the spot.
It's massive.
It's awesome.
It's also it's very crowded. So I don't know if COVID's made me a little more averse to crowds, but
sure,
it's amazing. It's amazing, but lots of people.
So do you find that most of your clients are, you said referral based, are you finding a lot of people coming from completely outside of Atlanta and Nashville specifically that are looking for an agent in one of those markets, or are you seeing people that are kind of relocating within the town more?
In the beginning, it was a lot of Nashville-based people, but lately I have seen a lot more from California, some from Chicago, the Northeast, Texas,
nice,
things like that. So, it's definitely, it feels like there's a lot more outside people coming in to both of them.
And do you deal with any reciprocal clients that are kind of investing in both markets, or do you kind of keep people in buckets where it's, these are my Nashville clients, these are my Atlanta clients? Mostly
it's been, they've kind of stayed in their own markets, but recently I've started working with a guy who is in both.
Nice.
Yeah.
Investor?
He's primarily in Atlanta, but he's interested in Nashville, so he's kind of checking out both landscapes.
That's cool.
So, which is kind of best case scenario, since I have my license in both, I can kind of help.
Yeah.
You know.
That's awesome.
Hopefully.
Not have to deal with as an investor, you don't have to deal with two realtors, which is great. You can just kind of have the same conversation twice. It's like,
So, but yeah, it's been interesting to learn, find a rhythm, you know, with how to do both.
Yeah, I imagine it's got to take a mental toll a little bit trying to kind of navigate the waters of two different brokerages.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that at all? Like, what's it like? Do you kind of have the same processes in both places, or is it completely different, or what's that like?
The systems are totally different. So the one I use here, they have a whole different system for how we, you know, even write up an offer. The contracts are even like, you know, the offer forms, the contract forms are so different. Okay. So just making sure that when I, you know, if I'm doing an offer for Atlanta, that I'm not looking at it through the lens of the Tennessee realtor forms and it's the Georgia forms, and it's just, there's a lot of nuances and differences. So
what are some of the bigger differences that stand out to you?
So Nashville's contract, I think they're both or Tennessee's, I guess I should say, they're both pretty long, but Tennessee, it's kind of the different offer points are spread out throughout the contract, mm-hmm. And so you've got paragraphs and paragraphs, and then you fill in a couple things here and there. In Georgia, it's all up front, like on the first page and a half.
Nice.
And so it's all the terms straight up front, and then the next 7 pages are the explanation.
Right.
So
I like that. Okay.
It makes it super easy because you're not like, did I miss something? Like, you know, it's all right there. You fill it all out. And then they have different like supplementary forms than we do in Tennessee. Similar but different enough. And just some of the things that are a bigger deal in Tennessee are not necessarily a bigger deal in Georgia. Georgia, you have to use an actual closing attorney, whereas here you can use a title company, but it's got to be like a real estate attorney in Georgia. So
interesting.
Yeah, and in Georgia, both parties sit at the table at closing.
How's that? Is it awkward?
It's not my favorite.
Yeah.
Not my favorite. The logic is that it would make both parties maybe behave better, but I've had transactions where it does not.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, a lot of the transactions, I'm sure you've been to plenty, they get a little contentious. They get heated naturally.
Yes.
It's part of the conversation. Yeah, I can't imagine that being
good. So it's nice. In Tennessee, I was like, this is great. And then I had to go to Georgia, and I was like, this is very different. Yeah.
So for a family who's thinking about moving to the South, they say they're coming from Chicago, Ohio, somewhere
mm-hmm.
up there. Do you try to play favorites? Do you try to stay away from that? You said most people come kind of with a destination in mind. Yep. But if I'm just kind of, hey, I want to move to the South generally, do you have an opinion? Like which one is your favorite? Or do you not want to say is it like kids where you don't pick a favorite?
No, I like them each for different reasons.
Okay.
So I think it just depends. I maybe know Nashville a little bit better than I do Atlanta, even though I've been going there a lot. I live primarily here. But I do think like there's reasons that I love Atlanta and there's reasons I love Nashville. So
sure.
They're kind of a little bit different.
Let's say a couple different things then. Which one has better pizza? Nashville or Atlanta?
that I've had, I can only speak from experience of what I've had, and I would say Nashville.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
far.
It's interesting you said the music. I don't think of Atlanta as like a music hub, especially compared to Nashville. But now looking at it through a different lens, like that's cool to hear.
Yeah, there were some, and I don't know if most of these venues, like the Masquerade was a huge venue that we'd always go to see shows at, and there's an outdoor amphitheater. I forget the name of it, but it's on the very south side, kind of on the way to the airport. Whereas Nashville, we got rid of Starwood. I don't know if you were ever here for that, but it was an outdoor amphitheater off of 24, and it was, just.
The Masquerade's funny. I've been to the Masquerade actually. In my time in Atlanta. Threw me through like a little mental memory jog.
Oh, it's been a while since I've been there, but that was one of our go-tos for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And both cities, I believe, have a place called 5 Points, right?
They do.
Yeah.
Yep. And they're not too dissimilar as far as just like really cool shops, restaurants, like, I think, it is kind of an East Nashville. The 5 Points in Atlanta is kind of a similar East Nashville
it's like
kind
vinyl
of
shops and
yes,
it's interesting.
Yeah,
wonder if
bars.
Nashville almost ripped off the
maybe
5 Points.
Although I will say, like, I kind of found out about both of them around the same time, so I don't know which one came first. But I think Nashville's is a little bit more not polished, but
Well, if you come later to the game, if Atlanta already established it first, then Nashville can kind of come in, like, do it the way that they want to.
Yeah, it's a little more shiny and newer, but still kind of that cool vibe with some great restaurants, shops, vinyl places, things like that.
Are you seeing in Atlanta, is the 5 Points area kind of an up and coming on the real estate side? Are investors kind of flocking there like they are in East Nashville here, or?
Well, so it's so 5 Points is kind of near this other area called Virginia Highlands, and that has been historically a really great neighborhood, almost kind of like a 12 South-ish.
Okay.
How 12 South is now versus maybe 15 years ago. So I would say 5 Points has always kind of been as long as I've been going for the last 15-ish, 18 years. Mm-hmm. 5 Points has always been a good area, so I think it's always been a very popular area. So I think, as far as investment, it's great, but I wouldn't say that it was like up and coming. It's kind of been more established for a while. Yeah.
Awesome.
So it's one of the cool places to go.
Yeah, it's one of my few memories from Atlanta was Midtown, obviously, is just awesome.
Midtown's great. There's an area called Old Fourth Ward.
Old Fourth Ward?
Mm-hmm,
nice. Okay.
Very cool. It's got a really cool new venue called the Eastern. Well, it's not new, but newer venue. They've got like this area that's got like an outdoor brewery with shops and restaurants and like just very cool downtown urban-y kind of vibe. Ponce City Market is another good one that's kind of in that area. Ponce.
Okay.
Yeah, Ponce de Leon is a big couple. There's a couple big streets in Atlanta named Ponce and Ponce de Leon, whatever. But they have this big city market, and it's kind of there's shops, but it's also like a big open marketplace with lots of cool restaurants and stuff.
Fun.
Yeah, very fun. That whole kind of southeastern corner-ish is really cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, as an agent, do you have what's like a fun or horrific story that you had recently? Anything fun you want to share? That's
trying to think. Oh my gosh. I don't know.
Most unique or interesting listing maybe that's popped up recently, or something surprising?
Oh my gosh. No, I was just gonna say I have had clients come up from Florida. I forgot to mention but that was like a super easy one. But I'm trying to think.
I had a client recently. I won't discuss too much, but a buyer I had a seller, and the buyer's agent reached out, and like one of the first questions they asked was, "Has anybody died in the house?" And I said, I have no idea. Let me
check.
Let me look into that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because you don't have to disclose it.
Yeah.
Legally, you don't have to disclose it unless somebody asks in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. So, aside from the contracts, what are some of are there any other differences that pop up for maybe like things you have to deal with clients that, different disclosures or anything like that?
We have like the lead-based paint. Georgia, you have to have it's called instructions for a closing attorney, which is basically this. It's this whole separate thing. Here it's our title company, and you literally don't. They're just you name them in the contract. That's it.
Right.
It sends off. That's it. But in Georgia, you have to have a whole form identifying who it is on each side and all the terms and all that stuff. And so it's a whole specific form. But not a ton. I did have, going back to your question, I did have a client who every single time we went to see a house, we had to know if someone died in it or if it was haunted.
Really?
Yes.
Nice. Like maybe it's more common than I thought.
No ghosts, no death, no nothing.
I can understand how many ghosts,
Yeah.
If they don't pay rent, it's not good.
And I have had a client who seems to think that there is a ghost and she has told me the stories, and I think that there is actually a ghost.
Fair.
Whether it came with the house or she lives near a graveyard, so whether it found its way, we don't know, because everything seemed fine for about 6 months.
Is this the client that you sold?
It was my buyer who bought the house, but not the one who wanted to know about ghosts.
Okay.
It was a separate client.
Gotcha.
Than that, but yeah.
Man, ghosts are like a hot commodity, I guess, in the real estate world.
I personally would not be interested in acquiring that. So
it could be
a
niche market to go into, like haunted homes.
But some people love it.
Yeah.
Some people want a haunted house. They love it. Like that's.
Well, that was my kind of internal question when asked about had somebody died. My instinct as somebody who isn't necessarily a ghost lover was like, oh, I hope the answer is no. But then I was like, well, maybe they want a yes. Like
some people want it.
Yeah, they might be looking for a yes. Who knows?
Yep, I have had to quiet some of my internal,
especially with homes, like you don't know what some people want to live in a near graveyard, some people don't.
Right.
So if I'm an agent, well, I'm an agent, but if an agent was thinking about kind of going to a dual market, first question, do you recommend it? Do you enjoy it? Or do you find it to be beneficial?
I like it. It just takes I think you just kind of have to know what you're going to be in for, and be upfront with your clients about that. And so all my clients in Georgia know that I live here, but we're there once or twice a month. And if I can't be available or in town, anyone at my brokerage is always happy to fill in. And if they're not okay with that, then I'm happy to refer them to someone who will be there full time. So it's just, it's kind of me personally knowing what I'm getting myself into. And then also setting the expectation for the client and being completely, forthright with them. Like, I'm not here all the time, but I do have a whole team of people willing to step in and help if something comes up. And I haven't had an issue with that. I think as long as they realize, I split my time,
sure, they're
fine with it. But I always make sure that I'm in constant communication, no matter what. Even if I'm not there, I'm checking in every few days, just to make sure that they feel like the communication is there. As far as two different you got, some brokerages are nationwide, and that might make it a little bit easier if you do have, say, Remax, they're in Nashville and Atlanta, and if you or Keller Williams, whatever, that might make it a little bit easier to have that brokerage. But me, that's not what I was looking for. And so it's two separate brokerages, two separate ways of doing things, and the way they procedures and all that. So
sure,
knowing that. And then you also have two associations, like Tennessee, Greater Nashville Realtors, and then I also have Georgia and Atlanta. So
double the bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
Fun.
Yes, but I did find out that I only have to pay NAR dues one time.
Nice. That's
so
good.
Once I pay my NAR dues for one, it is for the other. But I still have, so there's fees associated with it. There's just differences.
Sure.
So I think as long as you know that, and since I have family there, I feel like it's worth it for me to do that. And my primary goal is to help friends and family in Georgia. Here I have more kind of, a different client base.
Sure.
Yeah.
A little more open market here.
Yeah.
Versus there it's more specific you're working with.
But it has been cool to see how my people here, like agents that I work with here, they have a lot of need, or they have friends who are in Georgia who need an agent. And so I have gotten some referrals from my brokerage here for Atlanta. because now that corridor between here, Nashville, Chattanooga, Atlanta, people are going back and forth all the time. And so it's been actually kind of a cool niche to have. And people at my brokerage here will say, hey, I have someone in Atlanta that needs help. Can you do that? And if I can, great. If not, I can pass them off to someone in my brokerage. But it has been a cool little niche that not many agents have had.
Yeah, well, and I think anytime you can kind of diversify whatever you're doing, you can kind of speak to different scenarios. It gives you a broader, kind of grasp on the market as a whole. For sure.
Do
you find that like the homes in Nashville and Atlanta, do the markets kind of correlate, or are they completely separate, or how does that look?
There's similarities. I would say things are different more on the development side of things.
Okay.
The way Nashville has developed versus the way Atlanta has developed. But during the pandemic, Atlanta was booming just like Nashville was.
Yes.
There wasn't really much of a difference in that. The bidding wars, all that craziness was happening both places. And things have slowed down in both, well, not slowed down, but balanced out in both places. So they are similar. There's just maybe little nuances to each, but they tend to be similar.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So like percentage wise, how would you say you split your time between the two markets? Are you 50-50, or do you have a focus primarily on one?
It's there's more of an emphasis on Nashville just because this is where I live, but we do go down to Atlanta for most major holidays, birthdays, and it's such a quick trip. I can be there in 4 hours, 3.5, 4 hours. So I tend to do I try to go down at least once a month, sometimes two, for anywhere from 2 to 4 days at a time. Usually around holidays like 4th of July, Memorial Day weekend, Thanksgiving, I'll go down for a full week. And then I can make quick day trips if needed. So it's usually built around the client and the need. If it's a listing or if it's a buyer, that'll look a little different.
Sure. So what are the average home prices? How do they compare between Nashville and Atlanta?
Between Nashville and Atlanta, Atlanta seems to be a little less expensive than Nashville. I think Davidson County, the average home price was low 400,000s. Atlanta is probably somewhere around there, but it's hard. It's a little different because you have some more well-established, pricier neighborhoods towards the urban core more so than you do kind of in Nashville. So it can skew it a little bit, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
I think value-wise, you could get a little bit more bang for your buck in Atlanta than Nashville.
So do you have a difference in your listing strategy for either market?
Not too different. Okay. I think it's similar in how you're marketing it, you're trying to get the word out, the email blast, the open house, social media, things like that. It's different groups, but generally so far, I've only had a couple listings down there, so I haven't gotten as into the rhythm with it down there as here, but it's similar.
Awesome.
Yeah. I will say this, Atlanta's a little different because it is so big. It's carved up, and so your email blasts have to go, they have like North Atlanta, South Atlanta, urban core. So it's Nashville, you can do one blast and kind of hit all, facets. In Atlanta, you have to do a little bit more targeted marketing.
A little more market specific.
Mm-hmm.
So what's it like as a buyer in Nashville versus Atlanta right now? Are they similar, or what are you seeing?
It seems to be a bit similar. It was similar during the pandemic, both multiple offers, crazy over ask, giving away the kitchen sink. That was happening in both Atlanta and Nashville. And in this more balanced market, I'm seeing a lot of similarities as well, similar strategies. Sellers are offering the rate buy downs or closing costs like they are in Nashville. They're both doing it. So I think it's a good time to be a buyer. The interest rate's not going to stay at what it is forever, and home prices have lowered. I've seen in Atlanta and Nashville both a lot of price reductions. So the prices are balancing out a little bit. So I do think it's a good time to be a buyer in Nashville or Atlanta, and kind of, you know, the strategies are very similar.
Nice. So you work in both Nashville and Atlanta. Are the commission structures for agents similar, or is it kind of the same, or how does that work?
It's as far as what, yes, it's similar, but in Georgia, the listing service there takes a cut of every closing.
Wow.
So that was not a fun thing to find out.
Can I ask what level of cut they take? Is that?
It was like 0.2%, which it's not huge, but it was, you know,
It's substantial.
It's substantial, because, and, you know, again, if you're with a brokerage that, you know, you have a certain cap to meet, and whatever that commission rate is, or the percentage split is, it can cut into it. So
so that's for the MLS. Do they charge anything monthly also, or is that?
They don't. Not that I know of. I don't know if my brokerage has to pay a fee to be a part of it, but here, you know, I pay a monthly fee for RealTracs. I don't do that in Georgia, but every time I close a property, I have to pay a small percentage to
0.2% of the purchase price
of the purchase price.
Wow. Okay.
And I could be off on the percentage.
But ballpark somewhere around there.
But it was enough to, you know,
notice.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was like, what? I'm missing that. But yeah, so there's a little bit of difference between Nashville and Atlanta for that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you.
I want to say thanks to our sponsors, Scout Realty and Moto, Mission of Truth, and of course, Daina Storey.
Thank you.
Take it easy.